The Indiana Hoosiers in 2026 coming off a national title in 2025. Everybody thinks that this will be the year the Hoosiers take a step back. This will be the year. And they said that last year, and we saw how that turned out. For them, they went 16-0, won the national championship. We covered it all here on the Big Ten Huddle, presented and brought to you by FanDuel. And we're going to bring you another 2026 season of the Indiana Hoosiers football team, talking about what's going on, especially as we do our season preview here. Now, I do want to preface this by saying I am not in the boat of saying that Indiana will go 16-0 and win a national championship, primarily because Curt Cignetti said that that's very hard to match. Can it happen? Of course. Sure. It could definitely happen. Am I going to predict it to happen? Probably not. I mean, there is an aspect here of Indiana. They're a little bit more known. People are going to have them on their radar a little bit more. They are kind of the, more of a big dog, if not the big dog in the conference now. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what this development looks like for the Hoosiers. Now, I do think the Hoosiers are going to be a team that continues their success even when Curt Cignetti's gone. He's not gone anytime soon, but even when he is gone, I don't know if they're going to have the same level of success, but I still think this will be a successful football program because of their investment, because of their alignment at the top and everything else. But we'll stay on this season for now. Zach, what are some of your main storylines and narratives going into the 2026 season for the Indiana Hoosiers?
I have two. The first is simple. Can Josh Hoover be developed like Fernando Mendoza and Curtis Roark were, right? Each of those quarterbacks leveled up when they got to Indiana. Can Josh Hoover be the third in a row? Because if he does, then we are talking about playoff run, Big Ten contender, national championship contender. But a lot rests on his shoulders. I think maybe more importantly, and it goes back to your intro, is Indiana here to stay? Is this team not just here to have a nice Cinderella story, but are they becoming a big dog, maybe the big dog of the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think it's a totally interesting story to think about, especially when you think about all the talent they lost last season, but also all the talent they have coming back. I mean, we're going to talk about offense and defense here in a minute and talk about some of the returning players that I don't think people are saying enough about going into the season. But this is an Indiana team that, yeah, they had a bunch of guys go to the draft, and maybe not all of them were drafted because they had some injuries and things like that made things more difficult. But they also got guys coming back that are going to be really good for them. And if Curt Cignetti can continue to develop players like he has been. In addition to that, Mike Shanahan, Bryant Haynes, what they're able to do at the coordinator spots as well. This is going to be an Indiana team that's going to contend for another national championship this season. Right now on FanDuel, you look at the national championship odds. If you would have told me in 2026 that Indiana would have the same national championship odds as Georgia on FanDuel, I'd crap myself. I mean, I cannot believe. Sorry,
Wow.
probably a little vulgar.
Wow.
I cannot believe that that's where we're at. But Georgia won the national championship 2021, 2022. Indiana wins it 2025, and now they're kind of in the same spot going into the season. It's very interesting to think about. It's very interesting to kind of wonder. Both plus 850 there. That's kind of the other storyline I have here is, can Indiana surpass Georgia? Now the SEC fans will never let that happen. They'll stomp for Georgia as long as they can. But can this Indiana group kind of surpass Georgia? Some would say, including me, that they kind of already have a little bit. Maybe not totally, because you need to see what happens in another season before you do that for sure. But this is an Indiana program that I think has more going for it right now than maybe even a Georgia program does. Am I crazy, Zach? Are you going to shoot me with crazy pills or something at this point?
No, because our good friend Sam from College Football, Sam has talked about this ad nauseum. Indiana has something that I don't think any other program has, and that is coaching continuity and coaching alignments. And it's not just coaching alignment, but you mentioned it, alignment from the president to the athletic director to the coach to the coordinators to the position coaches. That is a superpower.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people are saying, well, they don't have the same talent. They didn't have the same talent last year either. They still beat Ohio State. They still beat Miami. They blitzed Oregon. They blitzed Alabama.
Yep.
All those teams on paper had more talent. but their coaching continuity and alignment, it is the superpower that not enough people are talking about. So no, you're not taking crazy pills. And that's why, the answer to my question, if I had to guess, is Indiana here to stay? I think the answer is an emphatic yes for me. Now, they could prove me wrong, but that coaching continuity and alignment to me is unmatched and unparalleled in college football currently.
I tend to agree. And I think the coaching alignment was a huge piece for them being able to keep the players they were able to keep on both offense and defense as well. And you look at this offense for the Indiana Hoosiers, they got a lot going for them, Zach. Josh Hoover coming in, he is the most, I want to make sure I get the stat right. I wrote it down earlier. Josh Hoover is the most statistically productive returning quarterback in all of FBS college football. The TCU transfer arrives with nearly 10,000 passing yards in his career, over 70 passing touchdowns across 31 starts. It's pretty incredible. 31 starts, over 70 passing touchdowns, and he led the Big 12 in yards per attempt in 2025 with 8.4. What were you going to say?
But John, his former coach, Sonny Dykes, said that he turns the ball over.
Yeah,
he's a scrub.
Obviously, Sonny Dykes wanted to get rid of him. He was like, go to the portal, Josh. We don't need your 10,000 passing yards. We don't need your 70-plus touchdowns. We don't need that. Get on over to the portal. Yeah, okay, Sonny Dykes. Anyway.
This is sarcasm, by the way.
This is definitely sarcasm. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. There are always some crazies that do not always understand the sarcasm. But I say that to say that, like, this team is loaded everywhere around. Like, this idea that, like, oh, they lost all their talent to the portal, especially on offense, and that's where we're going to start. You got Josh Hoover. Maybe you could talk about the backup quarterback position, but who really has a good backup quarterback in college football right now? Not many, right? Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, like those might be the only ones. Alabama might not even have a good quarterback.
I say, does Bama have a good quarterback?
I don't know yet. But you look at the running back position, you got Kobe Martin. I think a lot of people forgot about Lee Beebe Jr. with him getting hurt last season. And Turbo Richard is going to be excellent this year. He's only a junior. He's coming in. He's going to be fantastic, I think. Charlie Becker, Shaz Preston, almost said Patterson, Shaz Preston, Nick Marsh, the huge transfer portal addition, Carter Smith, the best left tackle in all of college football, Drew Evans, Bray Lynch is going to be moving to center for you. Joe Brenner comes in from Wisconsin to play guard for you. This offense is loaded, Zach. I don't see an area where, like, I'm super concerned about. I see an area that I'm not the most confident in, but, like, you asked me to pick the part of this offense you're most confident with. I'm like, yes. All of it. I'm sorry. I cannot give you an area that I'm most confident in because I just think there are so many phenomenal players in so many different spots. Are they the most, like, NFL draft players available? No. I don't think all these guys are going to be, like, top 10 picks in the NFL draft, but I think they have a whole lot of good talent for college football that can be utilized, and that's what Curt Cignetti loves to do.
Yeah. Since you didn't pick a position, I'm going to pick a position.
Thank you.
Wide receiver.
It's an easy one to pick.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could go offensive line too, but I think offensive line almost might be too easy. So I'll go with.
I have a reason why I didn't pick offensive line, but I'll get into that in a second.
Yeah. People don't realize how good this receiving core is going to be. Like, it might be the best in the Big Ten, which is saying
the best
something.
in the country.
Yeah, if it's the best in the Big Ten, it's the best in the country. Because I think the Big Ten might have three or four of the top 5 big receiving rooms in the country. Collectively, this group is really impressive. Nick Marsh, Shaz Preston, Charlie Becker. I don't know if there was a better receiver down the stretch than Charlie Becker last year. Now, granted, you lose Omar Cooper, you lose Elijah Surratt, you lose EJ Williams, like, especially Surratt and Cooper. Cooper was a first rounder, but I think you could make an argument that the potential of this receiving core is better than it was the past 2 years, which is crazy to think about. Because I think Nick Marsh has not reached his potential, being at Michigan State. I think Shaz Preston comes in, was a really good player for Tulane. And then you've got Charlie Becker as the ringleader. Like, they're gonna spray the rock all around these guys, and people don't realize how dynamic they're gonna be, how precise they're gonna be either. And I think that's the thing. They're going to be coached at an elite level, and they're going to be explosive at an elite level. They're going to be a problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially with Josh Hoover and Mike Shanahan being offensive coordinator there. He's the wide receivers coach, and so you have a whole lot of trust there with him and what he's doing. So the reason I did not say the offensive line was my most confident group is because of the right tackle position. And this is not me saying that I'm not confident in him. Like, if I had to give a least confident group, it would be the tight ends, but I feel like I've talked about that enough on shows and stuff here. So if this is your first time joining us at the Big Ten Huddle, I have talked about how the tight ends are probably my least confident position, not because I don't think they'll be good, but because I just have some concerns about not being the most experienced group. You're bringing in Brock Schott, who comes in from Miami. He didn't exactly get the most run there at Miami. He leaves during the playoff run and everything else. He's probably going to be a starter. Maybe they got a guy that's coming in that's going to be phenomenal, and I just don't know it yet. We'll see. But that does give me some concern. If I had to be a little bit more unique than I have been, it's going to be the right tackle position. Johnny, he came in and played well in the championship run and at times last season, but there's a difference from being the everyday starter and being the guy who comes in, fills in, kind of starts here and there when your team needs him to, especially if maybe it's a run that's not as important and stuff. So this is an area where I think, okay, if your right tackle position is your least confident position, you're fine, right? We just talked about this with Ohio State and some of their players. Like, if wide receiver 2 is your least confident position, you're probably fine. For Indiana, if right tackle is your least confident position, you're probably fine. But it is an area that I think I'm going to be watching a little bit extra for Indiana. But as we know, Bob Bostad is a phenomenal offensive line coach, and I think he's going to have these guys playing at a top tier level. What's your least confident group you've got there, Zach?
Tight end, I think, just on the basis of lack of snaps.
Yeah.
Like, they all have freshman eligibility. Like, they're all ranked as freshmen, even though like a couple of them have played a little bit. Do you know how many snaps collectively the tight end room has?
I do not know.
10.
Ooh. Yeah.
Brock Schott has the most snaps with 9, and they have Andrew Barker with 1. That's according to Punt and Rally.
Yeah.
So they need experience.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they do for sure. So we'll talk more about the tight ends and stuff in other episodes, I'm sure, but it's very interesting to think about. Defensively, Zach, who is the group that you are most confident in defensively? This is like sticking your hand in a candy jar and being like, which of these candies that I love am I gonna get? Because it's hard to pick a group here you're not confident in because it's so hard to pick a group that you are the most confident in because you're so confident in many of them.
Yeah, I'll go linebacker. Elijah Hardy, Isaiah Jones. I mean, I think I was gonna say secondary probably has more proven guys, but man, Isaiah Jones showed up so big. Elijah Hardy showed up so big in the playoffs. Combined 15 sacks between the two of them. They're just so darn good, and they have other guys there that have, that are seniors, which is kind of the secret sauce. So I know they've got to replace a couple other guys, but I'll go linebacker. I think just Hardy and Jones are just so good.
Well, look out for Jaden Williams there, the freshman as well, coming in from the state of Ohio. He was somebody that Ohio State really wanted in the recruiting process. They did not get because he elected to stay with Indiana, and I think that really says something. We saw the kind of season Coy Parrish had after that happened, and so we could see a pretty great season here for Jaden Williams as well. If you're going to ask me, I'm going to go with just the entire secondary, specifically starting corner and starting safety, Jamari Sharp, Amari Farrell, Preston Zachman. As long as he stays healthy, I think he's going to be really good. AJ Harris and Rylan Gandy kind of were battling a little bit for the cornerback 2 spot. I think AJ Harris will eventually, pull away with that in fall camp, but that gives me a lot of encouragement in the secondary as well, that you had that much kind of battle happening there.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard for me not to go with the defensive line. I mean, Mario Landino, Toby Asunami, I think is how you pronounce it, Tyreek Tucker as well. Like, it's really hard not to go with the defensive line here, but I think in the secondary, they are just very well coached. Obviously, they're well coached on the defensive line too, but they got a whole lot of guys with a lot of really good experience that you can rely on. I think Amari Farrell coming back, it was huge for this team. So there's a lot to love here, and I think it's really hard to choose something you don't love. So Zach, since it's so hard to choose something you don't love, what would you say is the part you're, I guess, least confident in?
Probably defensive end. I think you're bringing in Obiezer and Osasami from Kansas State, bringing him Josh Burnham from Notre Dame, and these guys have played a lot, right? Like, I think Obiezer has nearly 500 snaps. Austin Sanami and Burnham both over 200 snaps, and Dukwe close to 200 combined sacks. 11 out of the 4 of them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, now they get pass rush with their linebackers. So, yeah. I mean, Hardy and Jones, again, were beasts, but I do have a concern just from the pass rushing ability. Can these guys actually generate the pass rush? I think they can, but that's probably the biggest question mark I have.
Yeah. No, I get that for sure. I kind of got go with a little bit of like a weird statement here, because it is harder, and I just talked about Jaden Williams and how confident I am in him, so it's hard to say this, but I'm gonna say like the linebacker depth is probably the part I'm least confident in. I'm very confident in Isaiah Jones and Elijah Hardy. I think Isaiah Jones, and I think Elijah Hardy could be the best linebacker in the country this season, which is really saying a lot. He came from Navy. He's gone to Indiana now, and Indiana's just turned him into an absolute monster. It's pretty incredible what Curt Cignetti has done with him. But outside of Isaiah Jones there at Mike linebacker, it's all freshmen. Like we talked about with the tight end, Jaden Williams, he's pretty much your backup there, but he's a true freshman coming in, was a pretty underrated recruit. I think that rating was underrated. I think he was better than the rating gave him credit for, so I think that needs to be addressed. But you got pretty much all freshmen behind him, and so maybe Indiana does something really special if somebody like Isaiah Jones goes down. Heaven forbid. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, maybe they do something really special. We saw when what was his name? Not Weimer, Wyatt. Wyatt went down last season. Then Stephen Daly went down, and they just kind of kept chugging along. So I'm not going to question the depth of Indiana and say it can't be good. But when I do see a whole bunch of freshmen in one room, I just say, okay, let's see how that plays out, because I would love for Isaiah Jones to play, 70, 80 snaps a game this year, but I don't think it's going to happen. And so we're going to have to see what it looks like when he's off the field.
Yeah. I think that's a good thought.
All right, let's move on to floor and ceiling of the schedule. We have the schedule here between us, Zach. We have North Texas, Howard, Western Kentucky. SEC fans are hating that out of conference for the Indiana Hoosiers. And then you have Northwestern.
Okay, because they never did something like that ever.
Well, they just all changed their scheduling this year, so now they can be a little uppity about it, Zach.
Yeah. I mean, they're still scheduling like a Howard in week 10 or week 11. So
I still remember how many SEC fans could not wrap it around their minds last year at Big Ten Media Days when Kirsten Day said, "Well, we're just adopting SEC scheduling." They're like, "No, we play out of conference P4 teams." It's like, yeah, with an 8-game conference schedule. So he's playing 9 P4 teams, just like you play 9 P4 teams. Anyway, it's another subject. Anyway, so I'll continue on. Northwestern, at Rutgers, at Nebraska, Ohio State, at Michigan, and then Minnesota. Minnesota, a little bit more of a sneaky game there, I think, coming off of Ohio State and Michigan. Don't think they're in danger of losing that one, but that is on Halloween night, and so that's going to be a little interesting. By USC at Washington. Again, a little bit of a tougher, part there than I think some people give them credit for. Yeah. And then Purdue to end out the season. I will be honest, I'm not too worried about that one. Sorry, Purdue fans. Just the way I roll. The over win total for Indiana this season is 10.5. Zach, we just talked about how Ohio State has the highest like favor to go over their win total. Indiana is pretty much split. Minus 112 to go over, minus 108 to go under. So this is a win total that FanDuel is very split on, or at least the bettors at FanDuel are very split on. And it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Zach, ceiling wise for the schedule, what say you?
So I think 12-0 is the ceiling, but I do think you have to understand that this is a different beast than Indiana's regular season a year ago. Particularly, you start if you look at their from October 10th to November 21st. I think you can make a case that all of those, like, there's a potential to lose. Now, everybody's going to come for me in the comments and be like, we're not going to lose to Nebraska. We beat them 56-7. I get that. You're on the road. Like, you might get caught looking ahead to Ohio State, right? Then you have Ohio State. Then you go to Michigan. And then, Minnesota, you're probably going to beat Minnesota. But realize you're playing Minnesota after going to Nebraska, playing Ohio State, and then going to Michigan. Like, that's – and to your point about depth, I think that is always the question with Indiana is, can you maintain the depth and ability? Now, you get an off week after Minnesota, but then USC and at Washington is not easy either. So those 6 games – I think are like really pivotal. They could win all 6 of them. So I do think 12-0 is the ceiling, but I think that is the stretch that everybody has to look at.
Yeah, you do get a bye week there in between Minnesota and USC. Both those games are going to be at home, so I do think that helps you a whole lot there. Also, USC is going to be coming to you, but Washington is also one of the most difficult places to play at in the country, and so ending that streak there at Washington, I think, deserves a little bit more respect than maybe some people are going to give it initially. So it is a very interesting 6-game stretch. You don't have the big dogs of like Oregon and Texas and stuff like that in there, like Ohio State has Texas on their schedule, but you do have some dangerous teams. I would categorize at Nebraska and home against Minnesota, especially coming off the at Michigan game, as dangerous. I would not say that they are, going to lose those games by any means, but I will say those are games that if you're not on your P's and Q's, which Indiana always is, but if you're not on your P's and Q's, those are a couple teams that could take you a little bit more down to the wire than maybe some people are comfortable with. So I agree with you, though. Ceiling 12-0. I really don't have any questions about that. I think Indiana's at that point where almost every year, unless it's just a terrible, terrible schedule, they're going to have a ceiling of 12-0. Floor-wise, I would say the floor here is probably 9-3, which is kind of surprising to me that their win total is almost the same odds to go under as it is over with the 10.5. But as far as I'm concerned, yes, there's those 6 games there. I don't think they lose any more than 3 of those 6 games at most. Maybe at Michigan. Ohio State obviously is going to be tough, but you got them at home. USC is going to be tough, but you get them at home. And then at Washington, that could happen. But overall, I think this is a team that is going to be much closer to 12-0 than they are 9-3.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, to me, the big question is if a team can really beat Indiana, do you have comparable line play? And I'm not sure there's more than 2, maybe 3 teams that would have lines to really challenge Indiana. Obviously, Ohio State and Michigan, and then maybe USC. But I don't know if anybody else, including now, Washington can mess you up because the road environment, like that, traveling out west, and we've talked about it a lot. So, but then do I think that Indiana would lose to both USC and Washington? I don't think so. So I agree with you. I think 9-3 is probably the floor here.
Well, and you just know if they do lose one game, right? If they do lose to Ohio State or something like that, Curt Cignetti's never going to let him forget it. I mean, that is going to be something that he uses as fuel to the fire, and that's why I almost was like, okay, floor here is 10-2, but I think I have to be a little bit more respectable to the Big Ten Conference overall and how tough the schedule really is in the conference. So I'm not going to go with 10-2, although I do think I'm leaning that way a little bit more. I'm going to go with 9-3 as the floor because of the respect for the conference. But overall, I mean, this is a schedule that is not one that I'm super worried about for Indiana. If I'm making playoff predictions, and I'm not even doing like hot take Indiana's not in the playoffs. Indiana's in every single one of my playoff predictions at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and we've seen it the past 2 years with Cignetti. He has a very long runway to get his team to being at peak efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Like their first pseudo challenge is at Nebraska. No disrespect to Northwestern, no disrespect to Rutgers, but although I will say North Texas is probably a little bit better than people give them credit for.
Yeah, they lost their coach and all their players though, so I don't disagree with you, but I do think that there is maybe not as much optimism there as if they would have kept Eric Morris and those guys, Drew Mestman.
Yeah, so I agree. I just that kind of feels like it could be like Old Dominion last year, where you're like, what's up with Indiana? Why are they only winning by 17?
Yeah.
But there's
we would have never said that before 2024. Why are they only losing by 7?
Yeah,
or why are they
true.
only winning by 17 points? What's going on here?
Again,
2023 was when they were beating Akron by a field goal in overtime. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy.
Oh man.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That on ramp is how they've built momentum over the past couple years. Is they beat a bunch of patsies, and then people are like, well, they're not really that good, and then they just come out and just smoke people.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, they got the kinks out, and now they're rolling.
And it's a great strategy. I mean, it's exactly what Curt Cignetti wants. He basically uses those first 3 games as preseason games, work out the kinks, get it all put together, get his guys working together at peak efficiency. He doesn't have very many, if any, position battles or anything like that going into the season. They're going to be good to go. So, yeah, really looking forward to the Hoosiers in 2026. Could be another national championship run for them. Boy, I think the college football world would explode if Indiana goes back-to-back winning national championships. Yeah. But you know what? As much as I got my Buckeye stuff here behind me, I would be here for it. I would be here for the implosion of the SEC and everybody else if Indiana wins back-to-back national championships.
Real quick, what's your prediction? Like on their record, like we did floor and ceiling, but what do you actually think is going to happen?
I think I'm going to go 11-1. But I also have made the agreement that I am never going to doubt Indiana until they give me a reason to not doubt or to doubt them. And they've not given me any reason to doubt them. So Zach, even though my head says 11-1, my heart tells me 12-0 because I have said I'm not going to doubt them till they give me a reason to. So until they lose a game, I'm just going to keep picking them, man.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if you had to pick one loss, who's it going to be?
Ohio State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might go 12-0 with Indiana.
Yeah.
Because
like I said, I'm much closer to 12-0 than I am 9-3. Much closer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But like, so if you look at the lines, so they're only an underdog in one game. And they are a 2.5 point dog to Ohio State right now.
They're an underdog to Ohio State?
Well, at least according to Punt and Rally. That may just be their metrics.
I'd say on FanDuel, last time I checked, they were favored over Ohio State.
Yeah, sorry. It's the PNR line, so it's not the FanDuel line.
Okay, you're using the Punt and Rally. Let me check FanDuel really fast. Go ahead. I'll come back after.
But like at least according to Punt and Rally, that's the only game that they would have Indiana as an underdog and as a 2.5. Everybody else, they have them winning at least by 5.5.
Yeah, Ohio State is currently an underdog by 1.5 under Indiana on FanDuel.
Yeah, which I'm not surprised by at all.
Which is interesting because Ohio State, I cannot remember a long time since Ohio State has been an underdog to two teams going into the season, but
Yeah.
Indiana and Texas. So yeah, very interesting. All right,
Yeah.
anything else, Zach, before we get out of here?
I would just say if there's like opposing fans or SEC fans that are going to come after Indiana for not having a hard schedule, I I just want to point out again, like their schedule is harder than you think, right? They play four really good teams in Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Washington, and then Nebraska. Like Nebraska is pretty good. I think Minnesota is better than people give it credit for. Those first five, though, like I think you have a right to say that that's a trashy schedule. Although I am still very curious about both Northwestern and Rutgers, particularly Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern, I'm excited to do their preview because I I really thought they would be kind of in the dumps, and the more I think about them and the more I just look at them, I think they could be a bit better than people realize.
I agree. I agree. We'll end this Indiana season preview with a fun fact about Indiana. You ready for this one, Zach? I had this one
Yes.
loaded up and ready.
Go for it.
Two of Indiana's star players, their fathers, both played for Ohio State. Can you name the two players?
Oh gosh.
Star players.
Is it Charlie
Both were
Becker?
mentioned. What?
Charlie Becker?
Charlie Becker. Yes.
Oh
His dad
gosh.
played linebacker. I believe his name was Dave.
Dave Becker.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on.
The other one's a little bit less well known. He almost
It's not
played
in-
Miami when he was at Ohio State in the national championship, but he was just a little bit before that. He was in the 90s under Cooper.
It's not in Dukeway, is it?
No. No. Isaiah Jones. His dad was DJ Jones. Played for
DJ
Ohio
Jones.
State.
Yes, he was a tight end.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. The Indiana Ohio State rivalry that's brewing right now, man. I love it. I think it's so cool, and I think it's so fun. I mean, we'll see if the rivalry sticks and all, but there's a rivalry brewing here. You go back to Will Howard, stomping the cigarette, in 2024 to Cignetti and the boys taking care of business last year. The Ohio State connections that some of these Indiana star players have. It's pretty fun to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
All right, well, we'll end you with that fun fact there about the Indiana Hoosiers. And I think it's going to be a fun season for the Hoosiers this year. You'll get it all checked in and talked about here on the Big Ten Huddle. Indiana, one of the 2 or 3 teams that we prioritize talking about the most. So if you're an Indiana fan, definitely let people know about the Big Ten Huddle. We'll have coverage here all off season, all season, and continue to talk about it. So have a good one. We'll see you next time.